Welcome, everyone. I'm just going to wait a few more seconds as people start to trickle in. So I'm just going to dive right in. Welcome to another development session for the Declaration of Human Rights by American Youth. As always, we're really excited to have all of you join us tonight. We're going to be talking about civic engagement, meaningful youth participation, and of course, freedom of expression as it all pertains to human rights. So my name is Ray. I oversee all youth engagement at UNI USA, and I'm super excited to hand over the floor to our 11th Youth Observer to the UN, Himija Nagareti. We're joined by a really incredible lineup of speakers tonight. So as always, after the remarks, the floor will be open for Q&A with the audience. And then the second half of the program will be open floor for your ideas, your recommendations, your feedback, any questions that you might have. So in the meantime, please feel free to use the chat to introduce yourselves and leave any comments throughout the program. And so without further ado, Himija, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Ray. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us on a Thursday. I feel like Thursdays are always like a great time for meetings, but also a horrible time for meetings because everyone's like still super tired from the week. But it's always great to be in spaces such as these. I feel like these meetings are so different from the normal meetings that we typically are in because we're all kind of gathering in community to talk about the issues that we care about the most and see so many familiar faces. Hi, everyone. Yes, to provide a quick background on why we're gathering today and what this initiative really stands for, our work around the Declaration of Human Rights by American Youth was really fostered and created out of a sense of gathering our youth power, of mobilizing our youth voice to advocate for human rights and the SDGs, and the importance of focusing on youth leadership from the local to the international level in everything that we do. So in recognition of this, Ray and I worked together. We pulled together this concept of creating a Declaration of Rights by American Youth, a really comprehensive, forward-thinking, youth representative document that really highlights the human rights issues that young people care so deeply about. And so kind of with this, we've been going on a national tour. We've, as part of our listening tour, we're gathering feedback from young people, kind of diving into the spring semester. We've started hosting these development sessions, which is our chance of gathering together virtually in community with people across the country to talk about the human rights issues that they care about most. And each of these themes that we have for these development sessions around civic engagement, which is today, around gender equity, around all these different topics, really help to inform kind of the rights that we've heard are of most crucial importance to young people. And your voices are the voices that we want to spotlight in this effort. And as part of this, we always pair this with highlighting and providing platforms for young people to talk about the community work that they're doing. So really want to give a shout out to Ray and helping to organize Padlet, which is a really great tool for you all as young people to continue putting in your thoughts, your ideas, even beyond the scope of these 1 hour sessions on a bi-weekly Tuesday meeting, to really just make sure that we're continuing the conversation and starting to really highlight your initiatives, the work that you are doing. This is your microphone and this is your time to shine. So we're just super grateful and excited. Like Ray said, we have a full program for you today. We like to spotlight a few speakers who we've hand selected as just doing incredible work around youth empowerment and engagement around these different topics. And then afterwards, we open it up to just have a really authentic free-flowing discussion on these important topics. So without further ado, I'm really excited to dive in and introduce to you all some of our incredible speakers for today. My first speaker that I have lined up, who I absolutely love, is Rachel. Rachel is a foundations partnerships consultant for UNICEF USA and the co-founder of Global Futurist Initiative. Rachel, You, I believe, are still in DC, which is incredible. It was so cool seeing you in DC for Leadership Summit the other day. So inspired by your work, your advocacy, your drive to combine science and policy and really get young people on the grounds with this incredible work. And so excited to hear what you think about civic engagement. So I will pass the mic to you.
Awesome. No, thank you so much, Himaja. You're way too kind. No, thank you so much. And I guess being here in DC, this is actually my second Hill Day. And the work that I was doing was on behalf of the United States Global Leadership Coalition, to which the amazing Farah Eck, who is the Senior Policy Director for UNA USA, was a previous cohort member. I'm a next generation leader, succeeding her as a cohort fellow. So in that context, some of the work that I have done and the work that I intend to pass on to the youth and future generations is to mandate youth priorities in global agendas. We capitalize currently on the SDGs, but that also includes our common agenda, the African Union Agenda for 2030, and some of the other work that is being capitulated to the front lines of what it means to be a global citizen. So in that context, that's mostly what I do outside of my work of UNICEF USA, but of course, safeguarding children's rights in that context, of course, is extremely important to me. So whether it's my day job or my extracurricular activities, I really enjoy being able to advocate and almost feeling tirelessly. Maybe it's just because I'm so tired that I feel tireless, working with colleagues to advocate with Congress, with members of Congress. So that's me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I absolutely love how you talked about the importance of just pulling more young people into policy advocacy and the importance of us to continue being champions for that type of voice and that type of representation on the Hill and in our communities. So thank you for all that you do. I'm super excited to introduce you all next to another absolutely incredible speaker, Mark Ortiz. Mark is the founder of Global Youth Storytelling and Research Lab. So Mark, I will pass it over to you. So grateful for you joining us here today, and love that you're also a scholar in the field. So definitely so excited for all of us to hear more about your work and how you believe youth civic engagement can and should be strengthened in this work. So on to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm really glad to be in conversation with all of you tonight. So my name is Mark Ortiz. I'm a researcher at Penn State University, not far from DC, and a climate justice advocate. And I'm also the creator and coordinator of the Global Youth Storytelling and Research Lab here at Penn State. Really, our mission is to bring together researchers, storytellers, content creators, and youth activists from around the world to develop collaborative, youth-centered storytelling and research projects. We want to multiply impact. We want to highlight and amplify the stories, lived experiences, and perspectives of young people on the front lines of climate change and global injustice of other forms. So most of my research as an academic has been around youth engagement in international climate politics, looking at movements like Fridays for Future, School Strikes for Climate, Sunrise Movement in the US, and young folks who have engaged in the United Nations policy process around climate change for the last 3 decades, really. So I've interviewed a number of young people in over 40 countries about their climate advocacy work as part of this. And one thing that I hear over and over again is just that young people are eager to be involved and engaged in civic and decision-making processes, but there are many structural barriers that effectively lock young people out of some of these processes. And it's critical in our generation that we really bring down those barriers. These barriers are especially felt, I think, by young people who are multiply marginalized, who have intersectional identities that position their voices, their perspectives on the margins of these spaces. By that same token, we've also seen the power of young people coming together in their communities across global boundaries in recent years to shape the climate conversation at the global level and push it in new directions. So I want to end my few minutes just on that positive note of coming together and coming together specifically across these global spaces and global boundaries. So thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Oh my God, Mark, that was truly so inspiring. It sounds like you're the youth observer for climate, and that's exactly what we do. Is we talk with young people, we really gather that input, that feedback, and really highlight their expertise for the world to see, for all of us to learn from. And that's exactly what you did with your efforts to connect with other young climate justice advocates, to hear more about how they navigate these types of negotiations and these types of institutional structures that are really hard to navigate. We're not really taught how to navigate this, how to leverage our advocacy to its strongest extent in these types of policy decision-making spaces. And so the fact that you're trying to break down these barriers in that sense is just so incredibly inspiring, and can't wait to connect more on that. I have so many questions, and can't wait for our audience also to have the chance to ask you as well. But with that, super excited to move on very rapid fire to our next speaker of this evening, Ryan Lee. Ryan, super excited that you're joining us here today. Cannot wait to hear more about your work with GYP Debate Club and how you engage young people in civic engagement. So on to you, Ryan. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Himaja. So hi, everyone. My name is Ryan Lee, and I am actually a rising senior. So I'm a youth like a lot of you. I'm honored to have been invited to talk a little bit about a project that I've embarked on, as well as the importance of youth voices. So I'm an avid debater, and I've attended and won numerous tournaments in my debate career. But when I started working at my local debate academy, I realized that there were a lot of barriers to debate, to entry for debate, sorry. Namely the cost and the time requirements. And I thought this was a real shame because I believe that public speaking and expression are the keys to a strong and impactful life, because everyone has thoughts, but you really need to be able to use your skills to make your thoughts and voices heard so that other people can act on those opinions. So I started a debate club called GYP Debate Club, which aims to spread debate to youth all over the world. So far we've reached over 40 students from 4 countries with our affordable, accessible debate lessons, and we've raised over $2,500 for various causes in Cambodia and Haiti. One of the main focuses of my club is to help youth formulate their thoughts and ideas into words to share with others, because that unfortunately doesn't happen a lot in today's world. As youth myself, I find that we often have unique insights and lived experiences that are powerful and should be shared with older generations, but often aren't because we might feel a little bit out of place or not be given a chance to speak up as young people. But we can find ways around these barriers. After all, as citizens, we do have a role to play in our society. And even if we can't vote, we still have a lot of ways to contribute. And the best way to do that is by raising our voices and making our concerns heard through participation in initiatives such as the formation of a Youth Declaration of Rights, which all of you are doing right now. And so at the end of the day, my message is pretty simple. We have to play a role in society as youth, because sooner or later, we are going to be the ones in charge and the ones who are going to bear the firsthand effects of the policy decisions today. And so whether it be by starting a nonprofit like GYP Debate, or by chatting with your parents about politics at the dinner table, just make your voice heard and make an impact on the people around you. I'm extremely glad to see all of you here today, and I encourage you to continue participating in initiatives such as this one, speaking to your local representatives, and finding ways to make your opinions heard, because they do truly matter. Thank you so much, and I look forward to hearing from all of you during this consultation.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Ryan. That was so incredibly said. I don't think I could have put it better. The importance of education, of civic engagement and education, and making that accessible for people who can't vote. And there's so many reasons why people can't vote in our country. It's age restrictions oftentimes, it might be citizenship restrictions, it might be feelings of safety, it might be logistics, being able to vote during work hours and things like that. And so the fact that you talked about how we can continue breaking those barriers, how we can continue staying engaged and find our own pathways, our own pathways to remain civically engaged and educated and aware of what's going on, and to engage in that and engage in that type of advocacy is just so critical. And I could not have put it better than you. I'm trying right now and I'm literally can't do it. So it's literally incredible to hear you as a young person being such a champion for that change, and to rally up your fellow young people in this effort as well, because peer-to-peer education is some of the strongest forms of education we see actually work when it comes to all of this stuff, when it comes to the UN, when it comes to our local and global politics. So thank you for that. And with that, super excited to introduce you all to our last speaker of tonight, Karen Mulhauser, who, for those of you who may not know, is someone very, very close to my heart. Karen and I started off our journeys together with UNA Women when I served on National Council. Karen's just been such a huge inspiration to me and my growth as a gender equity advocate, and has helped me come to context and come to terms with so much of what it means for me to be a woman in this day and age. She's just such a huge champion. So Karen, on to you. So grateful for you being with us today. You are such an incredible champion, especially of young people, and can't wait to hear your words of wisdom to us as we talk about these important issues of civic engagement. Even though it's off election season, still so important that we continue to mobilize the power of our vote during this time. So Karen, on to you to hear your thoughts.
Thank you so much, Imoja. And it's such an honor for you to invite me to participate in this as a former young person. You can maybe tell that I have been involved with UNA for a couple of dozen years, and my entire adult life I've been advocating for a number of issues, many of them global issues, but some of them very personal issues. And I have much of my work with UNA has been involved with advocating for the UN Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW. And, it's just totally embarrassing that our country, the United States of America, is one of 6 countries, along with Sudan and Somalia and others, that have not ratified a commitment to gender equity. And much of my work with UNA and throughout my other activities has been focused on gender equity. And I have to tell you all, I have so much confidence in your generation. You understand issues about climate change better than my generation. You understand issues about gender equity. You understand issues that are so critical for our country and for the whole world. And it's become so obvious to me in the last couple of decades. I've been focusing most of my work on turning out voters, and I've even added it to my signature on my email, is that if we don't like the policies, we have to change the policymakers. And it's just so clear. And your generation understands this so well that if we don't like the policies, we're going to just have to change the people who make the policies. And so there's a lot that can be done. I'll put my email in the chat if anyone wants to reach out to me, but there's so much that can be done as 501c3 nonpartisan organizations in terms of registering people to vote. There's so much more that can be done with political committees, but it's just so obvious that in our democracy, the best way to get a commitment to global issues and personal issues is to do what we can to get as many people registered and voting. And I look forward to the conversation following this, but I just want to do I won't be too loud, but I want to give a loud shout out to Imoja for the work that she has been doing, and just watching her become a stronger and stronger leader on these issues throughout the last couple of years. So thank you. And I look forward to the conversation.
Oh, Karen. Thank you so much. And honestly, so much of my growth has been right alongside you, and just so grateful for everything that you do. Karen and I actually, and this is a plug if you are interested in learning more about gender equity issues, but Karen and I actually did a podcast, and we actually were talking about it the other day, about an intergenerational perspective given the Roe v. Wade decision to revoke abortion rights. And we were talking about what it means for my generation, what it meant for her generation to have Roe v. Wade. And it was such an interesting conversation. And I think continuing to have these types of intergenerational dialogues, and to even put it in context of this consultation, intergenerational dialogues around civic engagement, how we can have older generations provide pathways for young people to be more involved, is just so critical for us achieving a more equitable world. And Karen, you've been such a huge part of my growth in that. And so just so grateful for you. And with that, that actually concludes our incredible panel of speakers. I always tell Ray, like, I'm probably going to text Ray right after this and be like, how do we have just some of the most incredible speakers come and speak? And I have the receipts. Like, I always text Ray this, because we truly do have such incredible speakers that come and just knock it out of the park with their expertise in ways that we could never have fathomed. And just so grateful to each and every one of you sharing your expertise on this matter. And with no further ado, I'm going to open it up for a Q&A. If anyone here today has any questions for our panelists, any lingering thoughts that you wanted to share, please feel free to raise your hand. This is definitely meant to be a more free-flowing conversation, and obviously nobody wants to hear me talk for a whole hour, so feel free to raise your hand. Would love to hear your thoughts, and I'll open it up. Any takers, any questions that people have? Any and all questions are acceptable, and if not, I do have a question, so you will have to hear me speak more, and I don't know if you want to. All right. Okay, I will go first, but thank you so much, panelists, for sharing your context in the chat, because that's really helpful for any of our young people here who want to reach out and hear more about the work that you're doing. Just so grateful for you doing that. But would love to know more about what civic engagement means to you and how you became civically engaged. Were there any particular people? Were there any particular pathways that helped you be more engaged citizens? And would love to hear, or more engaged residents, I should say, to be more inclusive. Would love to hear more about your thoughts on that and how you've navigated your journeys of becoming more involved at the policy level, at your local level, at the international level. What does civic engagement mean to you, and how did you fall into this pathway? And Rachel, I wonder if you want to go first, since you're in DC, and Karen's also in DC,
Yes.
but you're also in DC. So would love to hear your thoughts, and then I'll kind of ping pong it to our different speakers.
Sure. I think that's a really good question. And I think the way that you worded it as falling in is very, it's on point. I did fall into this, I feel, really because I grew up really inspired by my dad, who has passed away. But he has been such a big influence on community engagement. He was the treasurer of a baseball league. He was involved with his local Elks Lodge. And I was truly motivated to want to like emulate that. And that's really like how I fell into it, starting with student council and becoming one of the most involved, like voted like most involved, like on high school and, through college, graduate school. That's how it's kind of like been. It's really just like been a part of me ever since. So really, I think that that's like where it began, but also like not only through like, that inspiration, I think that people can also be inspired by anger and in the right way. When you see injustices happen to many marginalized communities that you have spoken to, my philosophy is and I recognize the white privilege that I do have, if I'm going to have doors open to me, I am going to hold that door open for everyone. So that's what really has kept me in this space.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And it's just so inspiring to hear how personal circumstances, but also just like navigating your journey in advocacy has really kind of led you to this place where you've just been such a champion of opening the doors up for everyone. And I got to see it for myself when I met you at Leadership Summit. You're just such an incredible young person who always uplifts more young people with you. And that's how we achieve a more equal world. So thank you for that. I wonder if I can ping pong it to another one of our incredible speakers. Any takers before I call on you all? Okay. I wonder, Mark, if you want to speak on this, and totally fine if I know I'm putting you on the spot, but would love to hear more about kind of how you entered this space of advocacy and how you learned how to be more civically engaged yourself, and how, you decided to kind of use that to bring more young people with you.
Yeah, totally. So I would echo the kind of falling into it framework. So I think I was always interested in the natural world and like the environment, and grew up in the Deep South, where we have some of the most stunning landscapes in the world, but also some sites of intense fossil fuel extraction and industrialization. So there's this big tension there that I think is true in a lot of people's experience. And, for me, I was a science major, and then I had this kind of one transformative conversation with someone who actually encouraged me to become a kind of progressive student organizer on campus as an undergrad at the University of Alabama. And I've really been an advocate ever since, and an activist ever since, and also wanted to combine that with research, because I think research and storytelling are really powerful tools also for policy advocacy, for framing these questions and these issues differently. So I try to combine the storytelling, the research, and the advocacy, all because of really that one conversation that completely changed my life.
My gosh, the power of conversations, y'all. This is why you're all here today, by the way. It's because of the power of conversation, the importance of collecting our knowledge, our expertise, our experiences to shaping this better future, to inspiring a better future. So that's so incredibly inspiring that it was that one conversation that led you on this path, Mark. And think about how many other incredible young people you've also inspired to kind of follow in this climate justice advocacy because of those conversations. And so it's just so incredibly important. It's honestly, I would argue, one of the best ways we can continue breaking down the barriers that we face in this field. And so thank you so much, Mark. Ryan, would love to hear your thoughts too, as someone who's just been so incredibly civically engaged within your community, and just bringing more young people into civic engagement education. How did you fall into this type of work?
Yeah, so I guess similar to the last two panelists, I also didn't find civic engagement. Engagement found me. So originally I was at school, I had a debate club. I was like trying to plug it to some members to try to get them to join the community, because there were so many, in my opinion, like benefits of doing it, like the public speaking, critical thinking aspects of it. And so when they looked into joining these different like institutions or schools, they found that the tuition was very high, and you had to spend a lot of time to do it. So that's kind of what got me involved in creating debate clubs, so that people could access it easier. And then eventually it fell into kind of a more community-oriented organization that's bigger than just debate, about informing a lot of people. So one thing, for example, that we're doing is sometimes we have content lectures about current issues or problems such as like climate change, these other things. So we can also help inform youth as well. And so it definitely, civic engagement doesn't always have to start with you. You can always just get led to it from one path or another. And I think that no matter what your path really is to getting other people involved, as long as there's a cause that you're super passionate about, you can definitely make a huge impact on your community and on the world in general.
Thank you so much, Ryan. I love what you said in terms of like civic engagement found you as kind of a field of advocacy that you wanted to tap into. I absolutely love that. I might steal it. That was so cool. And also just the work that you're talking about with, continuing to have these conversations, and how we can use forms of communication like debate to really foster these more in-depth conversations about our lived experiences, and how we can leverage it into our advocacy, into our power, for our voices to be heard where it matters most, when it comes to picking our politicians, when it comes to advocating for the policies that we care about. Just so grateful for you talking about these really important issues. Thank you. And last but definitely not least, Karen, would love to hear your thoughts on this. I know a little bit more about your advocacy journey, and how you've kind of, engaged and learned more about civic engagement, and kind of fell into it as kind of an entire career of advocacy. And I know that your story inspires me so much, so I can't wait to hear you share it with all of us.
Well, thank you again, Himija, for this convening here. And Mark, I was also a scientist in college. I was a bio major, and I went to Antioch College that required all students to do internships. And so most of my internships were in medical research. And I found this comfortable because I was probably the shyest person on campus, the shyest person on campus. And the rats didn't care in the research labs. So I was on my way to being a medical researcher, but I dropped out of graduate school thinking that I probably should try to get over being so shy and maybe work with people instead of rats. And so I taught high school sciences for a couple of years and was just surprised at how many students came to me with their questions about sexuality and how do I not get pregnant. And this was a long time ago, before abortion was legal. And I just realized that the need for education and advocacy was so great. And so for most of my next couple of decades, I worked on advocacy related to abortion rights and reproductive rights. And then when Reagan was elected, I got inspired to, because he scared me at least as much as he scared the Soviets, I started a couple of disarmament organizations. And it just, my whole life for decades has been advocating, mostly lobbying, but advocating for the issues that I care about. And I was fortunate to be able to do that by running organizations. But it just became so clear that we needed to do something that I have now come to call extreme advocacy, which is the supporting the candidates who agree with you. It's not enough to lobby and to be advocates and to be civically engaged. We need to be electing the politicians who agree with us. And so it's been a long journey. It's not over yet, but as I said before, I have so much confidence in your generation to not only understand the importance of climate change and the other issues that are so important to the survival, not only of the planet, but of humanity, that I look forward to seeing how you're going to take leadership and take control of some of these issues in the future. I just wish I could live 30 years so that I could see how you do it. But I know that you will do it. So thank you for your energy. Thank you for your commitment. And thank you for doing what you know is right.
Thank you so much, Karen. And I remember hearing your story about kind of being in the sciences and like feeling really shy in these spaces. And that's something I relate to so much. So just so grateful for everything that you do. And for honestly, really actualizing so much of what we talk about when we talk about the older generation, really pulling and actively creating spaces for young people, because that's exactly what you do on a daily basis. And just so incredibly grateful for you. So yeah, with that, I will open it up for any other questions. I actually do see some in the chat, which thank you so much. Super appreciate it. I will first go to Jenny. So Jenny has a question for Ryan. How do you think speech and debate help young people to kind of grow and develop the skills they need to kind of take on civic engagement?
Yeah, so I've actually got this question a lot before. And yeah, I can kind of see where that comes from, right? Like debate, speaking, how does that translate to learning these like lifelong skills that you really need everywhere? And so the answer I usually give is that debate isn't just arguing about one thing or another, right? It's being assigned a topic, you have to critically think, you have to work with other people, and then you have to give a speech for like 5, 7, 8 minutes in front of a room of people. And obviously you can probably think of instances where you have to do that in your life too, whether that be meetings, presentations, whatnot. And so just really getting the experience talking, meeting with a lot of people, working with them, thinking about your own viewpoints and opinions, and even some that you might not agree with, because sometimes you are assigned these different sides. And just getting that experience, interacting, talking with other people, and presenting as well. These aren't just skills that you can use in Parliament, for example, or in Congress. You can use these in your workplace, you can use these in school, you can even use them in front of your friends if you want. So I think that's just kind of what you can do. if you want to go into debate, which I do highly encourage. It's a fun extracurricular too. So that's just something to consider, that it's not just arguing for the sake of arguing, it's arguing so you can learn how you can grow as a person. So
Thank you so much, Ryan. That type of self-growth is so important. What drives us and, the work that we do, and how does that pan out with our general efforts towards civic engagement? If we don't know what we're passionate about, how do we encourage other people to vote on things that they're passionate about? And so just so grateful for you talking about that and your journey and your incredible work with debate. And next, I would love to spotlight it to something Robin said in the chat. Hi, Robin. It's so cool that you're here. And thank you so much for highlighting the work of League of Women Voters. They do such really great work, especially around this type of civic engagement and getting the vote out, especially for women, which still continues to be an underrepresented group when it comes to our policymakers, when it comes to policy decision-making spaces. And so appreciate you being here today and highlighting that. And I'm wondering if you'd like to talk a little bit more. You mentioned that there's a speaker next week talking about child suffrage. Would love to hear more about kind of why that's your passion project and more about this event next week.
Wow, thanks for the airtime.
Yes.
Yeah,
I got you.
Okay, so I live just outside of Boston, Massachusetts, the state capital, and I'm a mom. My kids are in elementary school, and in moving around with them in public spaces, I realize, like, you'll be in a public bathroom and there won't be a step stool or a changing table. And so that was how I fell into this, so to speak. Because I connected that lack of built infrastructure with a lack of ballot power, like the power that drives our election system, right? And so how do you get that one person, one vote? Well, somebody needs to claim children's right to vote. And I think it's not just on children. I think it's on legal guardians, educators, like anybody who works and cares for children should say, hey, look, we all need this tool to make sure that our interests are being represented fairly in government. And as a way to communicate with one another, like, it's the ballot is something that also dignifies us and a symbol of worth and of our equality. And so, yeah, I was just really passionate about this. At first, I felt like I needed to come out to people about having this radical belief, but I'm like more comfortable in my skin with it now. So I'm proudly a child suffragist. And I have connected with some scholars who've written about it. And so you can see at childrenvoting.org/resources, we've compiled the writings that we found, popular writings and scholarly as well. And people from different fields, so economics or childhood studies, law. Yeah, and so we get together on Zoom about once a month, and we'll have one of these meetings next week. And the author of a book called A Minor Revolution is going to be our speaker. And this is a professor of law in Philadelphia. And yeah, was there a question for me in the chat? I saw something pop up on my screen. No?
It actually looks like a question for everyone, but no,
Okay.
thank you so much. Was there any last words you wanted to mention?
Yeah, just that we're a friendly and open group. People are welcome to join our listserv to learn about when our next colloquia will happen. And it's really exciting to be doing this work. I find it very energizing to meet with, like, some of our speakers have brought lawsuits in Germany about minimum voting age like 25 years ago. And so to reconnect with people who've been in this space for a long time and keep passing that baton forward is just really heartwarming. And again, we're a friendly group. Anybody's welcome. So yeah, I hope you'll check out the website and come be part of it.
Thank you so much, Robin. And I definitely, for one, I'm going to check that out, because we do talk about expanding voter rights for younger populations. It's something that we've done in Acton too, Acton, Massachusetts, which is my town. But it was an effort. There's a lot of misinformation, particularly that's out there with allowing more younger people to vote. And we were talking about municipal elections. We weren't talking about state or federal elections. And the pushback that we got was quite phenomenal. We were hearing so much mis and disinformation about young people. from many people who had never really spoken to a young person and realized just how much incredible knowledge our young people have who go through our school systems in terms of their knowledge of civic engagement and how their voice can really contribute to society. And so just so appreciate you highlighting that and can't wait to learn more about it. And special plug for that event next week if anyone is interested. Thank you for putting the link in the chat. Really appreciate it. Awesome. And we actually have such incredible questions in the chat. Thank you all so much. Oriolua asks in the chat, in what way can you make yourself more better and confident in public speaking? Are there any trainings? So that's a question for the group. And then the second question, I actually want to pass it over to Catherine to ask. Catherine, do you want to unmic and ask your question?
Sure, it's been a while since I've done this, but so hello to those that are familiar. Couldn't stay away. Here I am back again. For those of us that are new to civic engagement and are new to UNA, what advice do you have for both staying involved with UNA USA and within our local communities and just trying to connect the two?
Really good questions, very deep, like very good questions that I'm also trying to think of a good answer to. I wonder if any speakers have any initial thoughts, any initial responses.
Well, I think that for starters, just if you are a UNA member in a chapter or in a local community, to attend the meetings and raise your voice and speak out and talk about the issues that are important to you and add that whole civic engagement part of it, because some of the chapters are beginning to become more engaged in the policy issues and how to influence policies at the local as well as the national level. And there are some of the affinity groups within UNA, like the UNA Women, which focuses on some issues, but there are other affinity groups that you could join to. Those are kind of like virtual chapters, people who care about a particular issue, but they don't live in the same geographic area. And I think just raising the issues constantly of how can we work to make sure that the policies reflect what we believe in, and that of course gets down to ultimately electing the policymakers that agree with us.
Thank you so much, Karen. Any other speakers want to chime in?
I'll just piggyback off of that to say that sometimes, at least when I first initially got involved with the diversity roundtable of my local community, I came in with an open mind to just listen to see how the meetings are conducted, listen to see who is already speaking out, raising their voice, how they are doing it to enable us. And I think this in part goes along with the trainings that sometimes learning on our OTJ or on the job has been such an opportunity to be able to like get into it without necessarily feeling that you are disrupting anything or abrasive, especially for those who come from a more introverted or quiet or shy background, such as Karen. So yeah, that's an ease into civic engagement.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And yeah, to add quickly to that before I open it up to other speakers / ask more questions, because there's so many cool questions. Definitely want to say, in terms of, finding your power, finding your confidence, the number one thing I say is really think about your story and what compels you. Make sure that you really ground yourself in the power of your story. Whenever I talk about gender equity, I think about my mom, I think about my grandmother, I think about those generations before me that had to go through so much in order for them to continue to raise their voices, to continue to advocate for their basic human rights. And so it's something that gives you so much power to speak your truth. And so would definitely say that, and also start off in safe spaces like this. It's definitely easier to practice in safe spaces as this raise your voice, to say what you think. And as the time goes on, it'll get easier. And in terms of being engaged, this is definitely one of those places you can get engaged. We're hosting these development sessions. We're going to start kind of diving more into the drafting of our declaration very soon. So if you're at all interested in that, definitely let us know. There's also incredible ways for you to start doing local human rights campaigns and have that featured with UNA USA. Always ask questions, always let us know what you're doing, because that way we can continue to spotlight the incredible work that you're doing. So with that, we'll actually pivot to another question that was asked in the chat by Sahil. Any thoughts and advice on mobilizing other young people in our community to get involved in civic engagement? It's not very prevalent in my area, but I'm hoping to encourage others to join organizations like UNA. Sahil, thank you so much for the incredible question. It's so important that we continue to find avenues for that civic engagement. And actually, kind of want to do a little bit of a plot twist. I know we have here on this call Gabriel Nagel, who, did I say your last name right? Is it Nagel or Nagel?
Yeah, you did. No, it's like bagel, but with an N. So.
Oh my God, like bagel. Amazing. Perfect. So Gabriel, thank you so much for joining us. And I wanted to spotlight you because I had the chance to meet you at Leadership Summit. Number one, super incredibly impressed by all the work that you do, and also was super excited to hear that you also led a similar process with creating a Youth Declaration of Rights. And so wanted to kind of spotlight you to talk more about how you were able to engage your peers in this type of work around human rights, around local action, and how you were able to develop this declaration, which from what I understand is currently going through the acceptance process. So on to you.
Yeah, okay, thank you so much. Yeah, so I'm Gabriel Nagel. I actually just graduated high school. I was a debater too, Ryan, so kind of in your boat as well. So I guess I'll start off with like how I got involved with it all. So I had done some advocacy stuff earlier in high school. And then later on, I got together with a few different students in our school district. So I'm in Colorado, and our largest school district in Colorado is Denver Public Schools. There's about 92,000 students. So we, during the pandemic and stuff and like coming out of it, we recognized how many different issues there are. And a lot of those issues you had to direct directly towards school administration. It was much more difficult getting that at a larger level. It was mostly just your direct school. So we wanted to get together and create something that was a bit more substantial and significant. So we actually formed this superintendent student cabinet, and that group met basically monthly for the past 2 years. And it was a group of about like 90 students, a few representatives from each of the about like 90 high schools in DPS. And we got together and started drafting, kind of brainstorming, hearing all of these different issues that people were facing, from things as like random as, like the issues that we were facing with gun violence, to things related to like gender inequality issues, all of these other issues, kind of similar to what we are now, or at least the UNA USA is doing with the UN Youth Declaration of Human Rights. So after getting all of these ideas and brainstorming down, we then got together and started drafting an executive limitation and board policy document, which is in the format of kind of a Bill of Rights. And we organized it under a few different sections, very similar to, again, like what this Bill of Rights here is becoming. And I mean, it was related to specific issues ranging from like school safety to mental health, to just all of these different issues that young people were facing. And now we're just going through the process actually of passing that through our Board of Education. So it was quite similar, and it's definitely been a lot of a journey. We have done similar kind of town halls in our district. We've done 2 so far. We have 8 more. We're actually also doing 10. And we're doing it kind of regionally, also trying to get younger students involved. It's more specific to students, but it definitely is very similar to a lot of the work that you all are doing. So I can put the draft that we are working on in the chat. It's definitely still very much a draft. So yeah, it was great sharing that, and let me know if any of you have questions as well.
Oh my God, thank you so much, Gabriel. It was so cool to hear how we've basically been doing very parallel projects, but always grounded in the data and using that evidence that we're gathering from youth feedback to really make sure we're making a powerful statement in whatever space we're in about the human rights, about the youth rights that we need to be talking about. So just so appreciative that you were able to do this in your community. Cannot wait to see the draft. Please share it in the chat. I am definitely going to be taking a look at it after this. We love chaotic documents, by the way.
Because that's how like all my documents are.
Thank you so much, Gabriel. And with that, we only have 10 minutes left. I feel like we always kind of get, we always get so incredibly inspired by all our wonderful speakers. And thank you all so much for sharing your incredible insights here today. Would love to now open up the floor to thoughts from everyone. This is really the consultation development session portion of the evening where we talk about kind of what we took away as kind of crucial youth rights around civic engagement. Are there any youth rights that we haven't talked about within civic engagement? The floor is yours to really share your key takeaways and anything that you want to be contributing to this Declaration of Rights. And with that, I see Alana. Thank you so much for raising your hand. Would love to give the floor to you.
Thank you. No, I was actually at the Jed Foundation benefit last night, and I got to meet the National Poet Laureate, the Youth Poet Laureate. And the Jed Foundation was about mental health. So thinking about suicide being the second leading cause of death. And I think that's very important to note in terms of our generation, with also thinking about how we're engaged, but also being very inclusive when engaging with each other. And the idea of also, I guess, different groups. So thinking about writing as a way of change. So like I'm in a writing group called Girls Right Now, which is a program for young women to write. And we do civic engagement in that. So thinking about ways to do civic engagement, not necessarily with, getting people to register automatically, but thinking about ways to actually get them to the polls too.
I love that. I love that. I feel like learning how to be a better writer myself made me a better advocate as the years went on. And I love how you're using that and leveraging that type of communication advocacy to talk about civic engagement and to get more young people there. So thank you for sharing those things. And also, talking about, like you said, about peace and security, about gun violence, about the disproportionate amounts of violence and harassment physically and online that young people face is just so crucial and important to think about as we talk about civic engagement, because those are the topics that tend to be underrepresented in our policies. And so just so incredibly grateful for you sharing that. Thank you so much. I wonder if anyone has any thoughts. Oh, I see Ashley in the chat. Any advice on how we can engage more on mental health and spreading the awareness of it within UNA USA? That's a really good question, Ashley. And actually kind of want to open that up to the entire group, speakers, participants, everybody. What are your thoughts on mental health when it comes to civic engagement, when it comes to participation, and how we can kind of use our platforms to spread the awareness of the importance of mental health within whatever we do? Any thoughts on that?
I'll just say really quickly that every single time we have a youth engagement panel discussion, mental health is always brought up. Mental health awareness is always brought up. It is so important to young people. And I could say that with the work that I do, it's one of we have 6 key targets in our youth equity, we call with our youth equity campaign, and mental health is certainly at the forefront of it. And I think that there are many opportunities for engagement on it. And I'd be happy to, to open the floor to everyone else on this as well. But I just wanted to mention that, yes, we are very much aware that mental health is such a key point of youth issues today.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And I see Alana put in the chat that she's a Global Goals Ambassador. We love our Global Goals Ambassadors. And so she's been able to spread more awareness through writing and activism, which is so crucial. And I will say too, to add my 2 cents, mental health is so important to continue talking about from a civic engagement participation standpoint, because that's an issue that directly affects young people. But we see in, for example, universities, their policies, we see within our local policies and our national policies that we're still so far behind when we talk about, number one, the causes of mental health. So we don't talk enough about, for example, online peace and security. We don't talk enough, for example, about online bullying and harassment, especially as it pertains to women and people of color. So we see gaps when it comes to that. And we also see gaps when it comes to action and where our resources are being placed, and having more young people at the table to inform our decisions on those things that disproportionately affect young people. And mental health has been that field where a lot of young mental health activists have had to take a really visible role, oftentimes at personal risk, to talk about these issues, because they're not being highlighted enough. And so it's so important that we continue to support our activists in this movement, that we continue to join our voices with activists in the mental health movement, because that's how we're actually going to be able to achieve the civic engagement we always talk about. So appreciate you bringing that up. And Alana said, especially for people with disabilities too, absolutely. It's so important that we continue to highlight how people with disabilities face more mental health issues and are provided less resources, and how our civic engagement can potentially change that, and why we need to continue pushing for that. So thank you. Any other thoughts, any other things that people wanted to bring up as crucial youth rights when it comes to civic engagement? Things to add to our declaration. Any thoughts?
I just want to say again how impressed I am with this generation. And you are probably aware that some recent elections have been significantly influenced by young people turning out to vote, and how important that is. And as I think I said earlier, that one of the issues that I've been very involved with is reproductive rights and abortion rights. And clearly it was young people who, especially young women, who influenced a lot of the elections, because you voted for reproductive rights and autonomy of one's body. I mean, it's just become so clear to me that unless women are able to decide when or if to have children, they just cannot avail themselves to the education and economic opportunities that people have if they don't get pregnant. And so I just want you to reach out to everyone you know to encourage them to turn out and vote on election day, because it is those people that we elect that write the policies that govern our lives. And I appreciate you very much.
Thank you so much, Karen. Yes, our vote is so incredibly powerful. Every single vote that we put forth is us shaping our futures. And so continuing to push for that is so crucial. And especially making sure that you're opening up pathways for maybe your underrepresented colleagues to make sure that they are able to get to those polls, that they are able to vote. And we know that voting is not equitable in this country. Voting is not equitable worldwide. In most democratic countries, including ours. And that's talking about democracies here. So it's so important that we continue to break down these barriers. We continue to foster more voting engagement, especially with our young people. And kind of on the flip side of that, really giving young people a why, right? Why is your vote important from the local election level to the national election level? Why does your vote matter, and how can we continue to help support that vote? Because that voice needs to be represented. And so it's just so crucial that we continue doing that, and we continue to encourage more young people to run. And that's another thing I'm going to shamelessly plug in, is the importance of young people running for office, so that we can continue to have a more solid youth voice at the table in every single decision that we make. So appreciative of you mentioning that, Karen. Any other thoughts before we wrap up? We have 2 minutes. Any other thoughts that people want to add? I also want to kind of throw in this idea of intersectionality, right? So when we talk about the 17 global goals, we always say that you can't talk about one goal without talking about the 16 other goals, regardless of what goal you pick. And so kind of on that vein, civic engagement is probably one of the most intersectional issues that we can talk about. So would love to hear your thoughts on why it's important we talk about this intersectionality. Are there any specific topics within intersectional civic engagement that we need to be touching on in this declaration? Would love to hear your thoughts. Yeah, Alana.
It was raised earlier.
Is your hand raised from earlier, or is that a new hand?
Oh, mine is a new hand.
Amazing. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I would say thinking more about people with disabilities in terms of civic engagement. I feel like people with disabilities are not seen enough, and they're also not heard enough when we're thinking about civic engagement and who's exactly there. Even thinking about public policy makers being a lot older So our generation, Generation Z, not being at the table. And I think that's a big issue. Our generation definitely wants to be heard. So thinking about youth, but also thinking about disabilities and that intersection. And then also thinking about people of color as well who are not there, and thinking about their representation.
Thank you so much, Lana. So, so true that we continue talking about it. We've seen, for example, I mean, this is Pride Month. We've seen so many attacks against our LGBTQ plus population. And we continue to see how they continue to have their rights stripped away from them at the policy level, and the importance of us codifying that type of inclusion at the policy level, and why we need to continue pushing for that at the local level, at our national level. We need to continue doing that. Catherine, saw your hand next, super excited to hand the mic over to you.
Sure. Kind of just to piggyback off what Alana said, not only are we implementing things, but also the accessibility. So if you fall kind of in, regionally in an area where you don't see all the resources, or, you don't have, food stamps, food banks, whatever it is, making sure that even if you qualify for certain things, that you're also seeing the bigger picture and that you're able to make a difference within that. So just accessibility all around, wherever you fall on income, wherever you fall on, multiple factors, and disability as well. And I think that in anything that we work on, that is kind of to focus on, is making sure that everybody has access to whatever we're doing and working on the goals.
Thank you. And Gabriel, thank you so much for putting in the chat that 45 anti-LGBTQ laws passed this year alone in the US. And I didn't even know that myself. It really is horrible. The Human Rights Campaign actually called a state of emergency, a national emergency, because of the violence against our LGBTQ plus population. So thank you for highlighting that. And also what you said too, so grateful for you, Catherine, for highlighting the importance of accessibility throughout, and how we need to continue breaking down those systemic and institutional barriers. Karen, I'm going to give the last word to you. Thank you so much for raising your hand. And then if you guys can stay, would love to get a quick picture, because we love our pictures. So Karen, on to you, and then we'll do our group picture.
Okay, well, my thought was, and I'm glad it is the last comment, is that we should all unmute and give a loud applause for Himija for bringing us together. So how about that? Let's unmute and give her applause.
Oh,
so she can hear us.
Thank you all. No, it's such a pleasure. And Ray and I always talk about just how incredible these sessions are, and how it just gets us so excited to continue doing this work. And this work definitely doesn't stop here. Ray just incredibly, she always reads my mind. It's actually really funny. We're soul sisters at this point, but she just put into the chat a link where you can share additional thoughts. Please do continue to share your thoughts in this form. We'd love to continue incorporating your feedback into this Declaration of Rights. Share this with your friends as well. We're going big. We're trying to go big with this, to really make sure we're having a really inclusive youth statement at the table when that 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights hits. We really want to make sure that we're being a solid force in our advocacy for the human rights that we care about, for universal human rights and dignity. And so with that, I will conclude. I know we're 3 minutes over, but thank you all so much for joining us today. Just so appreciative. Thank you so much, Gabriel. I see you in the chat. Thank you all so much for coming. And with that, Ray, I wonder if we want to do a quick picture.
Yeah, so I'm going to count down from 3 just to make sure everyone's ready.
And feel free to turn on your videos if you want to be on camera.
Right. It looks like this is who we have here. Okay, and 3, 2, 1. Beautiful. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you all so much. We will share all this information post-event with the recording and things that we discussed and our notes, and we'll continue to have these conversations. Our next development session is in a couple weeks, so stay tuned. But with that, have a wonderful night. Thank you all so much for joining us. Lots of love to you all.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.